Salvador Dali, you might have heard of his name. If not, you definitely have seen one of his paintings. Like this one, which shows what happens when you microwave some clocks made of cheese. Dali's art style was weird, and calling it weird is an understatement. But his bizarre paintings and the iconic mustache hid something from the general public. Salvador Dali was a terrible person, and when I say terrible person, I do not just mean that he had a bad temper or behaved rudely with people. I mean the dark and twisted kind of bad things that ranges from utter narcissism all the way to animal abuse and even racism. The debate over art versus artist is as old as time, and in this list of great artists, terrible persons, Dali is not the only name you'll find. Yes, I'm looking at you, Paul Gauguin. Also, the reason why I'm making this video is not to turn people against the artist. People already know about Dali as a painter, and I think now they should know more about Dali as a person. So I have separated all the terrible things that he has done into different sections, and as we proceed, things will get more and more serious. And trust me, things get bad really quick. So bad that I had to rack my brain to decide what gets the worst spot in this list. So first, let's start things slow and look beyond the canvas at all the deplorable things about Dali. Pride is the dark suit that comes from the bright flame of fame. This was not said by some philosopher, I just made it up. But it is true. Every artist who has got famous has shown some level of narcissism. But holy moly, Dali was on some another level. I'm not talking about his quotes such as, "Every morning when I wake up, I experience an exquisite joy. The joy of being Salvador Dali. And I ask myself in rapture, what wonderful things is this Salvador Dali going to accomplish today?" I'm talking about the very disgusting things that Dali himself admitted to do, such as how he saw a legless blind man sitting in his little cart, trying to move ahead. The sight disgusted Dali so much that he kicked him and sent him scooting all the way down the street. Now, I don't know about you, but to me this is enough for me to find Dali disgusting to the utmost scale. But there's more. Dali mentioned that when he was 29, a girl complimented on the beauty of his feet, which is weird, I must add. But what Dali did next is even more bizarre. Dali said, and I quote, "I jumped up, my mind clouded with an odd feeling of jealousy and towards myself, knocked my admirer down and trampled on her with all my might." While there are many other cases of Dali's extreme arrogance and narcissism, we certainly do not have the whole day. So let's move to the next chapter. Dali was a weird fellow. I mean, that was on par with his brand. The guy was a surrealist artist. Of course, he was supposed to do bizarre things. But many of the things Dali did were not just bizarre, but it also bothered the people around him, who certainly did not want to be a part of his quirky shenanigans. Like one time he gave a lecture in a scuba diving suit, and he could not breathe properly. While he gestured for help, people just assumed he was doing one of his weird things. He almost died that day. But that was not all. Once while he was staying at the St. Regis Hotel, one of his favorite hotels, he called the staff and asked to deliver a real horse to his room. During another stay, he asked for a flock of sheep. Now, maybe he was just being weird and quirky, but to call and bother the hotel staff while they had to entertain it because Dali was famous seems wrong. Once he drove his Volkswagen on public ground, destroying the grass. But perhaps the worst of his eccentricities was when he and his wife Gala, whose story needs another video, did something utterly disgusting. In 1934, for the costume ball in New York, Dali and his wife dressed up as the Lindbergh baby and his kidnapper. If you do not know about it, you can Google it, as it is too horrific to be discussed in this video. Just know that things did not end up well for the baby. To be so insensitive and attention hungry, it is baffling. There's a reason why George Orwell called Dali a great draughtsman and a disgusting human being. By the way, even in 1934, there was a big backlash against Dali for being a jerk, and he had to apologize to the public. Surely not because he was genuinely sorry for doing such a thing, but because he had not expected this quirky act to go south. Oh, by the way, he also admitted to once eating a bat that was infested with ants, pushed a boy off a bridge when he was a kid, and even as an adult was inclined towards necrophilia. There you go. If you're eating something, you're welcome. Art does not pay, and for the artists to look for ways to make money is understandable. But what happens when a world-renowned artist who is already so rich that he owns a castle just cannot stop his greed for more money? Well, he does some very questionable things. When Alejandro Jodorowsky was making the Dune movie, he asked Dali to play a part in the movie. Dali accepted, but he had some conditions. First, he asked the Emperor's throne to be a toilet made up of 2 intersected dolphins. And Dali's own friends had to play the Emperor's courtiers. And he wouldn't be reading Jodorowsky's script. He said, "My ideas are better than yours." Also, he wanted to be the highest paid actor in Hollywood, so he asked for a staggeringly mind-numbing $100,000 per hour. After adjusting for inflation, this amount comes to be around $300 million per hour. The director agreed and then cut Dali's role to bare minimum so that he would not be on the sets for more than an hour, and then added a robot look-alike to speak the rest of Dali's lines. But Dali was famous and he had the right to ask for any amount of money he wanted. Fair point. But what about all the time he used to dine at fine restaurants and at the end, he would make some doodles at the back of the checks, knowing that the restaurant would never cash it? Just pay for the meal. It's simple. This is something Picasso also did, but that's for another video. But the worst example of his greediness was when he signed thousands of papers which were then used with counterfeit paintings that sold for a high price, giving Dali a good share of the profit. His wife Gala was also an accomplice. There are thousands of fake paintings in the market that are signed by Dali. He would also sign paintings of other artists as his for money, although there is a possibility that he was not aware that the paintings were not his. André Breton jokingly noted that an anagram of Salvador Dali is Avida dollars, which means avid for dollars, owing to Dali's incessant desire for wealth. But now we move to the most serious things about Dali. Take a look at this photograph. You can see Dali in his quirky form jumping in the air while three cats are mid-air, about to fall down. This photograph is called Dali Atomicus and was taken by Philippe Halsman in 1948. The photograph took around 28 retakes as they had to time everything right. And back then they did not have Photoshop, so the assistants were throwing the cats in the air, and many times the water just splashed the cats. Now, I'm no cat whisperer, but I'm sure that no cat or human would like to be thrown around and waterboarded 28 times so that Mr. Dali here would get his perfect shot. But in his defense, throwing cats in the air was not his idea. Dali actually wanted to blow up a duck by shoving dynamite inside it. Here's what Irene Halsman, the daughter of the photographer, told about Dali and his father's interaction. Dali said, "I have an idea. Let's take a duck and put some dynamite up his derriere and blow him up." And my father said, "Oh, you can't do that. You're in America. You might get arrested." Again, if he wanted, he could do all the stupid things in the world. I have no problem with that. But to bother people around him and literally blow up animals is something that goes beyond stupidity. But now we move on to the final part of the video, and this is where you get to see the worst of the stuff. Yeah, it gets even worse. I could not decide which one was the worst of all, so I put them together. I'm talking about Dali had some extreme political views and he was quite vocal about them. He was an open supporter of Francisco Franco, the right-wing dictator who ruled Spain for almost 40 years. Franco was responsible for the death of around 400,000 people, and Dali called him the greatest hero of Spain. He also promoted the rule of one king. He wanted the country to be run in a more authoritarian manner. Not just that, Dali also expressed that Hitler was exciting. Nazism was hyper-original. André Breton mentioned that in many letters Dali lauded Hitler, but this could either be made up as Breton was a staunch opposer of Dali, or it could be that Dali was trying to annoy Breton. Dali's political views were so radical that he was temporarily kicked out of the surrealist movement in 1934. Dali also disliked the idea of altruism in Christianity because he said, "We don't want happiness for all men, rather the happiness of some to the detriment of others." Wow, this is dark. And this perfectly moves us to perhaps the most disgusting thing about the painter. He was openly a racist person. In one of his letters, he said, "The domination or submission to slavery of all colored races could be possible if all the whites united fanatically." Now, coming to the purpose of this video. Knowing that Salvador Dali was a horrible person who would be cancelled in a second if he was alive in this day and age, what do we do with his paintings? Should we just stop showing Dali's paintings? Shut down his museums, ban his paintings from exhibitions, and delete his name from the history of art? Well, not at all. Remember that doing this would be quite a fascist thing to do. We cannot get rid of his paintings, and we should not even try to. I believe Dali's paintings were quite influential, and no doubt that he was the most popular surrealist painter of all time. But I think everyone who sees and even admires Dali's paintings should also be aware of what kind of person he was. I want them to look at his paintings and say, "Hey, it's an interesting painting made by a talented painter and a horrible person." It is important to separate the art from the artist, and all I'm saying is, you should know both thoroughly. And that was the end of this long video. If you liked it or found it interesting, then how about you subscribe to the channel? I'll be trying my best to post more videos this month. I've taken a month to upload one video and I'm trying my best. So thank you for watching and giving me your precious time. Till we meet next time, have a great day ahead.